Alright, so in this video I'm going to be talking about my Valby build that I'm running in the first Descendant. Now before I start, I'd like to say that I am new to this game, as is a lot of people as well, so not everything is fully understood yet, so just understand that what I'm saying here is not set in stone. I'm sure things will change in the future as I discover more things personally and as the game develops. Now, to start things off, the basics here. Valby relies on non-attribute damage types. So if we look at our reactor here, we're running non-attribute skill power boost, dimension skill power boost, and the mounting for this this pistol. The biggest priority that you want to focus on is the non-attribute skill power boost. As long as you have that, and then maybe something like dimension or fusion boost, you should be fine. Non-attribute applies to all of your skills. Dimension applies to your C and V ability, and fusion applies to your Q and Z ability. I prefer dimension just because you're going to get more value out of that than fusion. So if you wanted to min-max, that would be the way to do it. And generally the reactor is probably the most important part in terms of your skills, so make sure you have that set up correctly. One thing to mention as well when it comes to this character in terms of its pros and cons is that you're going to be doing very good when it comes to the big mob clumps, where you have a lot of enemies in an area. But when it comes to bosses and single target damage, you're not going to be doing as well from your skills. So you have to rely on your weapons to do a lot of that damage. Now, of course, you could use your abilities on bosses, and you still should, of course, but you're not going to get as much value from it as you will with a lot of enemies. So that's one thing to mention about this character specifically. Another thing is that the best weapon that I've found so far is the Thunder Cage. You get this pretty early in the game, and I've upgraded it 2 times. You can see, we look at the unique ability. When defeating an enemy, the enemy has a chance to release an electric shockwave, which damages nearby enemies. And this is very strong because it pairs pretty nicely with this build, because you're all about crowd control and big AoE damage, and this is very good for that. This is also a really good weapon for Bunny, so it's also, a pretty versatile weapon when it comes to that. And yeah, I mean, all around it's just a very easy weapon to use. It's a submachine gun, and you want to make sure you upgrade it. You want to upgrade the firearm attack, rifling, reinforcement. Make sure you max upgrade this just so you get more damage off. This is very important for bosses, so yeah, it's probably the most important thing to upgrade. A few other things I've upgraded is the magazine size, so that you can shoot more before reloading. This is pretty important for a boss like, I think it's Devour, where he puts down the poison things, and it's a DPS check. You have to kill all the poisons. So yeah, it's pretty important to have max magazine size in that situation, and I think it's just all around a good one to put some upgrades in. Let's see. A few other ones that are good would be weak point and crit damage and crit chance. Those two are pretty important as well. You don't have to fully upgrade these. In fact, I wouldn't even recommend doing that. But they're good to put a few points in at least to get some better stats in there. You basically want to make sure you're max capacity, unless you are waiting for something that you're going to invest in the future. But yeah, you should basically make sure you're max capacity, especially when you're going into a boss like one of these void intercepts. You want to make sure your damage is as high as possible. Alright, so for the Descendant modules here, you want to make sure that you're running non-attribute specialist, because of, like I said before, all of your skills use non-attribute, so you want to make sure you're running that. One thing that I will mention, which is, I'm not sure if this is correct or not. In the future I'll probably know a little bit more about it, I'm actually running HP conversion, which is going to convert some of my HP into shield, and Valby has inherently more HP than a lot of characters. So like I said, I don't know if this is a good choice or not, but I like having more shield than health because your shield recharges. Your health you have to actually go and pick up, unless you're running an attribute that lets you recharge health. But in my case, I've found it a little bit more beneficial to run something like this. But like I said, of course, this stuff will likely change in the future as I discover more about it. You also want to make sure you upgrade your whatever this is. You don't have to use Shock Punch. I think it's a decent one, but it's a pretty slow sub attack, so I might change it out for something else in the future. I don't know yet. I'm just running it for now. I think it pairs pretty nicely for this build for now. But yeah, you just want to make sure you upgrade it, because when you upgrade it, you'll get more capacity slots. So make sure you upgrade that. Another thing is that when you're going into bosses, you want to make sure that you're running the antibody type of that boss. So you can see I've upgraded heat antibody and toxic antibody to 2600. Make sure you do this, because as you get later into the game, these bosses will do a lot of that damage type. So this one, recommended attribute resistance is 2600. So I've kind of just stuck with that, and it's worked pretty well. So make sure when you're doing these bosses, you want to equip that antibody type. And you want to, like in this case, I'd probably replace this, maybe even this with whatever damage type I need. So a lot of these can be mixed around a little bit, but the priority ones would be this. HP conversion I think is pretty decent, so I like using that. Skill duration and HP heal is pretty neat. I don't know if it's that good, but I like running it. When it comes to running like open world stuff other than bosses, which is pretty much, the entire game other than bosses, the one thing with skill module is you want to run Singing Water is what it's called. I don't have it yet, but that is the best one because of the fact that it taunts enemies into your Z ability. So it's this one where whenever you shoot that thing, it's gonna taunt enemies into it, and it pulls them in. It's very, very strong. I used it in the beta, but I don't have it yet, and I plan on using this when I get it. But it's extremely strong for everything other than bosses. When it comes to bosses, I wouldn't even recommend running any skill modules because it's a waste of capacity. So yeah, but when you're doing anything other than bosses, Singing Water is probably the best choice. Like I said, I don't have it yet, but when I do have it, that's what I'll be running. But other than that, there isn't much else to cover. I guess I could cover kind of like my main weapon, which is Thunder Cage. You get this pretty early in the game, and it's very strong. It does AoE shock damage whenever you kill an enemy, and I've upgraded it twice so far. So if we go to the unique ability, you can read it here, but basically whenever you kill an enemy, it's going to release an electric shockwave that can damage enemies in my case, a radius of 4, only because I've upgraded it twice. I think default is either 3 or 2, might be 3. And then trigger rate is also going to be default at 60%, I believe. So when you upgrade it though, it's going to get higher on these two stats, and then I assume it's probably going to get higher on firearm damage as well. So I'm planning on maxing this out. It's pretty easy to farm this. You can just go to go here and then check what materials you need, and then go do those quests. I think it's 20% drop rate. But yeah, that's the weapon that you want to prioritize, I think, for this build. And other than that, that about covers it. I'll probably make a more advanced video as I learn more about this game. But for now, that is going to do it. Hope you enjoyed. I'll see you guys in the next one.